All right, welcome to this week's episode of Build Value by Choice. I'm your host, Nana Bonsu, President and CEO of Infinite Horizons Incorporated. Infinite Horizons helps business, especially on the small and medium-sized side, to help them increase the value of their business by leveraging their data assets and using our proprietary cloud-based technologies and our partners to help you increase the value of your business without worrying about other factors such as being caught out with too many expenses or working too much when a part of the leadership team. This week, I have on an expert, a leader in the human capital industry. One of the things that we found is that labor shortage and especially qualified talent has been one of the top 2 or 3 items on the minds of business owners for a long time now. And Scott Dettman, who's my guest today, he's the CEO of Avenica. He's an expert on the topic. His company deals with pairing talent with businesses and job openings. And so this is actually a timely time to discuss this issue and what you're doing to help fulfill that gap. I'm going to read a little bit about his bio. Avenica CEO Scott Dettman is a dynamic leader with a strong track record of driving growth through transformation and innovation in the human capital arena. Scott joined Avenica in 2019, following a 6-year stint with Manpower Group that included progressive leadership roles, spanning analytics and transformation to general management and business development. Scott has a master's degree and a PhD from the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and he completed an executive leadership program at Harvard Business School. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So you have an impressive background. So what was it like just going from being an expert to becoming a leader?
Yeah, it's a great question. I got the advice once from a mentor that leaders are rarely experts and experts are rarely leaders. And so at some point you kind of need to pick a path. And, having the background in academia, I was definitely headed down that expert path, but it took a little bit of work, but I think forcing myself to step back and understand sort of the foundation of things and not get so deep into the details and really trust other people that are smarter than me to inform opinions and things like that was crucial, right? You can as an expert you can know a lot about one thing, right? But then you start to sort of lose sight of how that thing fits into the larger context. And the larger context is what leadership's all about.
Right. Setting the vision and, providing the big picture and communicating it out. Yeah. So I know you have sort of a against your grain perspective on this whole talent shortage thing. So I wanted to ask you, do we really have a talent shortage? No. Why or why not?
So, my view on this is maybe a little bit contrarian, but I don't believe we do have a talent shortage. I think we have a talent translation problem. I think there are a lot of individuals with the potential to do a lot of great work and a lot of organizations that need those individuals, but there's this translation problem happening between potential and impact. And so much of that goes into the mechanics of how we connect people to work and how we evaluate talent and how we view skills and all sorts of things. But you look at just even the number of people that graduate from college each year. It's about 4 million people just in the US. And you look at that in theory is 4 million qualified people every year entering the labor force, regularly. And so, as people are working longer, working until they're older, the math just doesn't work out for there to be this massive mismatch of labor. So yeah, I would argue we don't have a labor shortage. We just have a kind of a mismatch or a misalignment issue.
Okay, can you share a little bit about the primary industries that Avenica works with or covers?
Yeah, we focus a lot on organizations that need a little bit of help, kind of getting their name out there, right? So I like to think about it as almost like the players that are fundamental to the economy working, like the funders, the movers, the makers. So it's like manufacturing, financial services, logistics, supply chain, all this stuff that happens kind of behind the scenes, insurance, that's really, really necessary for everyone, but maybe isn't a brand that you go into a store and buy, right? So those big consumer brands are easier targets for candidates, looking for a place to work, right? People see Target, and so they think, oh, that's a great place to go work. But it's because you're familiar with that consumer brand. But we really do a lot on sort of the B2B side, the businesses and services that kind of underpin the economy.
Can you share a little bit about how Avenica connects, without giving too much of a secret sauce, but in general, just how you connect entry-level talent to opportunities for the right businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So, really what we do is we cast a very wide net to begin with, right? So we work with tens of thousands of candidates every single year, and we try to limit the amount of areas where someone may disqualify themselves, or where, and try to enhance the areas where people may sort of see this as a potential. So we start with a really wide, kind of aperture and bring as many people in as we can. We assess those individuals primarily on things like work preference and behavior and style and interest and values, really kind of the core things that are essential to someone kind of becoming a cultural fit, right? And then we kind of look at, almost in a secondary lens, skills and aptitude and some of those kinds of things. But it's all started with this notion of getting as many people into the funnel as we can, and then assessing them based on fit and values and interest and sort of future plans, and then aligning them and educating them about roles and opportunities that exist in a wide variety of industries and organizations where they would actually be a pretty good match. Because at the same time that we're bringing all these candidates in and doing this, we're simultaneously meeting with hiring partners. We're mapping their preferences, mapping their values. We're identifying what are the things that really make someone successful in this role or in this organization, and we're starting to kind of behind the scenes do this match of really culture and preference and work style. So it's really kind of matching behaviors and preference to environment, because especially at an entry level, the skills are pretty transferable, right? And you can get, if you get the right person with the right intent and the hunger to learn and grow and make an impact, you can teach them all the stuff that they need to know, right? I mean, it really comes down to getting the right people in the right seats. And so that's what we focus on.
You think that's one of the biggest mistakes hiring managers make, which is focusing more on the hard skills, especially on the entry level side, focusing more on the hard skills versus the soft skills like work preference, behavioral type of orientation. And then, like you said, it's easier to teach some of these hard skills. Do you think that is one of the biggest mistakes that hiring managers make?
Yeah, I think that's one of them. I mean, hiring managers are in a tough spot, right? I mean, I have empathy for hiring managers because, going back, let's say 25, 30 years ago, people would apply to work at companies because they would go, maybe they'd visit their site online, or they'd stop in and they'd get an application on paper or something. But the advent of like massive job boards and stuff came to be, and all of a sudden a lot of these organizations were flooded with applicants that maybe weren't the best fit or didn't really make a bunch of sense. But I mean, today people can go on something like Indeed and they can apply to 100, 200 jobs in a matter of minutes. And so there's this disconnect between really understanding what that individual is interested in and what they would do and what they want to do, and with what the organization needs. And so almost as like a defensive mechanism, organizations have built these barriers to entry, right? They've created these skill requirements and these experience requirements that are pretty non-specific in some ways, but almost like overly specific in other ways. And what's happened is you've created this impact where people are either being screened out because they don't have this specific skill, or people are self-selecting out because they don't think that they would qualify to work in these organizations. So it's hard to do because without some sort of filtering or sort of channeling mechanism, organizations will be overloaded with applicants that are kind of coming from all over the place. But the best thing to do is to really kind of engage with applicants and give them a chance, almost create more levels and requirements for them to go through, and basically say like, hey, if you do all this stuff, we are going to, guarantee you that we'll give you a conversation. Because once somebody gets to the level of like having a conversation with somebody in an organization, that's where the real determination is made, right? It's really once it's at that point. It's never off of a resume, right? A resume is used as like that first level surface, kind of surface level assessment of whether or not somebody is going to be a good fit. And it's not an effective tool. I don't know anybody on the planet that would look at resumes and say like, yeah, those things, resumes are really doing us a great service, on a daily basis. Like they really do a great job at really depicting somebody's potential. So, really trying to move away from some of those kinds of tools and moving down the path of understanding how do we get to know someone, how do we understand their story, what they've been through, and who they are. That really is the key to more effective hiring.
Now, did you mean to say resumes are giving us a great disservice or a great service? Because it seemed like you were saying that the resume is just the initial just kind of thing, but the real okay. So let me come at it from this angle. Hiring managers have limited time, right? They want to be able to funnel it to a few number of candidates that are serious candidates that they can invest a lot amount of time they having a conversation with. So it's almost like a tricky situation where yes, they may be filtering out good candidates, but they also don't have the time to be able to interview a whole bunch of people just to see if they're a cultural fit.
Yeah. So, the way that I look at it, I mean, I absolutely mean to say that resumes are not doing a service. They're, I think, one of the worst things, that we rely on in business. I personally have not looked at a resume in years, just because I don't believe it's an effective, barometer of potential. What I believe organizations can do is set up their process of hiring to actually require more investment of time, energy, and sort of input from applicants, but doing that with this sort of back end guarantee that like, hey, we're going to interview you if you do all the things that we ask you to do, and you put information in, and you write this, and you do this, and you take this assessment, and you do this, whatever those steps need to be, kind of asking people to go through some of those levels to really demonstrate that they're interested. Because again, it's so easy for a candidate to just do easy apply, easy apply, easy apply. And there's no investment of time in understanding the role or the industry or the work that needs to be done. And so if you create a little bit more barrier in terms of the work that needs to be done, but you do that with this caveat that like, hey, if you do these things, someone from this organization will give you a call and we will have a conversation with you so that you can tell us your story. One of the things that we've seen organizations do too, and we're building this in at Avenica, is giving people an opportunity to pick up their phone and take a selfie video and say, hey, take a 2-minute video and tell us your story. Give us your background, tell us your story, and tell us why why you think you'd be a good fit for this organization. The people that are interested in just sort of casually easy applying, they're never going to do that, right? But the people that are serious and have done their research and want to work at this organization, they would gladly take that step and do that if it means it's going to lead to an interview and a chance to really talk to a real human and kind of get a chance to be considered for a role. Because I mean, once somebody gets to an interview, that's when the game really starts, right? That's
Right.
when the evaluation process really begins.
Yeah, I've known companies, and I mean, I haven't had to spend too much time, or I haven't spent like as long a time as other companies. Some positions sometimes takes up to a year, and
Mm-hmm.
some positions are not even able to be filled at all. And so it's I guess the question is, why you think it's important that business owners change the way they funnel, candidates in to make sure they have the right fit. And then also, if you have an example of like an example or two of like great candidates that you're aware of, I'm sure you probably helped them, kind of, redress the situation. But great candidates that were screened out that would have served some company really well, but because because of the process, I guess this way you said the gap comes in, but from the candidates just kind of doing easy applies because everybody's just doing resumes and going on job boards. And maybe you can talk about how this whole job board situation, maybe they need to go away. Maybe that's going to be your controversial kind of contribution to this. Maybe do we need to get rid of job boards, altogether? And what about the small business that may not have the infrastructure to be able to? I mean, I guess they could outsource it, but tell us about the job boards, and then why you think businesses really need to pivot away from job boards and just go straight into putting together things like take an application test, some kind of assessment, just so you can get to know the person, and also just get to gauge the person's seriousness. Because if they're going to invest their time into whatever your steps are, your process, chances are they're very serious about joining your organization.
Yeah, I think it's a great questions. We find ourselves in this moment where the power in the labor market has really shifted, right? It's shifted away from employers and shifted to job seekers. And really, for the first time in most of our lifetimes, this is the case. And so, it's always been the case for certain skilled individuals, or highly trained operatives and things like that, right? There's always been a market for people that have an intense level of skill. But for sort of the general entry level, 0 to 5, 0 to 10 years of experience individual who's looking to do some sort of, mid-level non-leadership kind of role, which is, 80 to 90% of the jobs in the US. In the past, these individuals had to there were 10 people, vying for one job, right? But today it sort of feels like it's flip-flopped. It feels like the power has shifted because of the pandemic and because of technology and the ability to work remote and all these things. So really what I think has to happen is organizations need to stop viewing candidates for jobs or potential workers as this thing that they can expect to just be running in droves through their doors to come, knock on their door and want to apply. They should view them in the same way that they view their customers. They should set up a strategic plan, a marketing effort, if you will. I mean, job boards, organizations that go post something on a job board and they just assume, oh, someone's going to apply, someone will see it and it's great. But it's sort of like you wouldn't market to your customers that way. You wouldn't just sort of throw it out there and just hope and pray that someone's going to come through and just throw money at it. Really, you would have a more, focused, idea or plan around who your customer is. How do you connect with them? Where are they? And so a lot of what we do at Avenica is we're really helping to understand where individuals, especially at the entry level, are going for information. I mean, we will post things on TikTok that end up getting 400,000 views, right? And so we're sourcing candidates from all these different places and pulling people in because it's where the candidates live, right? It's where they are. We go to them, we market to them, bring them into the ecosystem, and then help them understand what's available. But I mean, if you are a social work, if you went to school and studied social work, most of those individuals are never going to come out of school and think, I should go find, a job in financial services or insurance, right? They're just not on that wavelength. That's not how they think about it. But then when you go to an individual with a degree in social work and say, hey, part of a job in insurance is this area called claims. And part of what you do in claims is you basically show up for somebody on the worst day of their life, right? They're having a really tough time. They've gone through something catastrophic, some sort of loss, something tragic is likely transpired, and you are part of their healing process. You get to come in, you get to help them start their process of healing. You share that with somebody who studied social work and they're like, whoa, really? That's a job? You get paid to do that? And in insurance, insurance companies do that? They have no idea. And so we share some of that information and people are blown away. And those individuals end up becoming incredible employees on a claims team because they have such a high degree of empathy. They're detail oriented. They do such a fantastic job because what really sort of inspires them personally connects to what they do professionally. And at the end of the day, if you can get super excited about the work that you're going to do every day, there's nothing better. There's nothing that better drives work success than being passionate about what you do, right? It's just, there's almost nothing better. So it's really, I'm not going to sit here and say job boards need to go away, because I don't think that they need to go away, but I think we need to stop relying, hiring managers, business owners need to stop relying on job boards as like a sole source. I'm just going to put this job up there and it's just going to attract all these people. It just isn't going to work that way. You need to have a little bit more time, effort, energy, and yes, investment into thinking about how do you get the right people to walk through the door so that you can evaluate them. Instead of worrying about getting 100 applicants, get 10 of the right ones, right? I mean, and really take your time and think about what is that person, what is their story? What do we place a high value on, right? So like, we talk about this all the time where you could have two candidates that on paper look exactly the same, but maybe one of them has dealt with food insecurity. One of them has had a parent that was incarcerated or has seen addiction up close. When you see those kind of candidates and you understand their story and what they've been through to get to the place where they are, that's the candidate that you're going to want to look at, because that candidate's not going to hide under their desk when they get a tough deliverable, right? They're going to rise to the occasion. And so it's really kind of rethinking this and adopting this mindset that these are individuals that are probably your most important customer, right? This is someone you need to win over, and you need to think about it that way.
Well, that's such a great way of looking at it. It's just such a creative and innovative way of reassessing. I like the way you talk about how it's not about the hard skills, but it's the behaviors and the aptitude that are needed. So if a social worker may not know that they would be fit for an insurance claim adjuster, I think that is such an innovative way of looking at it. And I guess this is where the translation thing that you mentioned at the beginning of the show comes in, because the social worker is not translating a job description. They may not even look at it. Right. So because insurance, they're probably thinking math and finance and stuff like that. So
and if you think about it, when you go, for that job seeker, they're going to a job board and they're treating it like a search engine, right? They're going in and they're putting in social work degree, or they're putting in, the industries or areas that they're interested in. And if they don't think of themselves as a potential fit for insurance or banking or, what have you, it's, these two ships will never pass. Like they'll never connect. And so that's part of what we were trying to do is using technology, data science, and, empathy and an understanding of, what works and what doesn't in the workplace to try and connect people to opportunities where they can really, build a great career.
Yeah, no, that's how is because clearly I love David versus Goliath story, right?
Yeah.
So clearly you're up against, how is Avenica just kind of partnering with other institutions just to help, bring this change about, to help, fulfill the gap? Because clearly you have a mission, and the mission is, is so timely, especially in this, current environment. How are you from do you have infrastructure to be able to support the deluge of demand that is out there? Just tell us how you are going about making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, we are building the infrastructure, every day, and adding to it on a regular basis. We're growing rapidly, but today we're working with about 300 hiring partners across the country. Working with 50,000 applicants, 50,000 candidates every single year. So we have a lot of people coming in. We've done a really great job at really establishing that base, that sort of supply side base. And then, in terms of the infrastructure, we're really leveraging, automation to take people through processes and take them through different steps and levels that are that don't require a ton of human involvement. And then we're using humans where humans are best, which is like empathy and design, right? So we're bringing our team in, and we've got, I would argue, some of the best talent, best employees, on the face of the earth. And I give them the challenge on a daily basis of put a stamp on the heart of everyone that you work with. And so do something today to work with candidates that are trying to go launch their career or relaunch their career or re-enter the workforce or kind of just get their career started. Work with those individuals and make an impact on their story, right? Do something meaningful. And it's not about, don't be so worried about connecting them to the job or doing that. But most organizations that work with talent, they start with a demand focus, right? They think about what are the jobs we need to fill, then let's go find people to fill those jobs. We are supply side focused. So we start with the candidates and then we think about how do we help them? How do we make an impact? And so every step, thereafter is about, leveraging this pool of talent that we're building and connecting them to opportunities where they may never have thought about before, but opportunities where they can really build a great career. So, it's, we're a small, fast growing company. It's, we're never moving fast enough, in my opinion, which is just sort of, curse of the gig. But yeah, I mean, we're able to do a lot with a fairly small group, and we're adding to that and we're building out the infrastructure. But it is a little bit David versus Goliath. But you know what? I like our odds because I think we have a very unique way of looking at things, and this is something, this whole like consumer candidate thing is something I've been talking about for years, but it wasn't really until the pandemic that this became more of a reality. I've been kind of like the sort of false prophet, predicting that this was going to happen at some point, and I was wrong over and over and over again until finally I was a little bit right. So I think that's where we are, and I think we're trying to capitalize on that moment, and we're trying to find better ways to do that every day. But again, it all starts with an emphasis on the candidate and giving them what they need. That's our customer. That's who we serve, and it's free to the candidate, which is also great. But it's that's where the whole process begins.
No, that is it actually what you just said actually, because I had a question, because a lot of times it's all about the who pays you, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of these staffing companies, if they get paid by the demand side of the hiring companies, then obviously they're just going to look to how they can fulfill it. And what is great and inspiring about what you said was, can you imagine making an impact on the journey of somebody, especially on the entry level side, right? Helping them, just fulfill their potential, right? And that is, I get goosebumps just thinking about that, right? Because there's nothing worse than, going through 30, 40 years of your career and, being in the wrong career because, the education system just kind of funneled you through,
Yeah.
something like, okay, you took this course and therefore you got to go do this,
Yep.
whereas you could have been the best, instead of like going to do something in, some museum somewhere, you could have become the best insurance adjuster, helping people in distress and all of that. So I think that is such a unique and innovative way of going about it. So that's an awesome thing you guys are doing.
Yeah, and it's fun, because I think each of us knows of someone. You can probably, anyone listening could probably think of a story where somebody that they know who's been very successful, and they ask them how they got there, and it's like, it was just luck. I just happened to walk into this place, or I happen to know this person who gave me a call. But we're so advanced as a society in so many ways. Like we shouldn't be betting on luck, and that luck is it's lopsided, right? Because depending on where you begin and what your background is, and and a lot of times like what you look like, or what your origin story is, that luck is not equally distributed.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of what we find is, I mean, we work with a lot of BIPOC candidates, a lot of first generation college students, and these are individuals that are just brimming with potential, and just so much, there's so much excitement and passion and energy. And it's so fun to just, be in this position to be able to kind of unleash that, right? Because they're the ones with the superpower. We just help them find it. Right. And then we just, help get out of their way, basically. But yeah, I mean, I would argue with anybody, I've got the best job on the planet. That's for sure. I love what I get to do every day.
No, I mean, I'm inspired. So that's what I'm on the board of advisors of the Career and Learning Services organization. And that's what inspires me too, right? Which is helping to build a pipeline. How do we make sure that the high school students, or K to 12 students coming through have the right journey, or have the right things that they should be shooting toward, as opposed to just taking in new classes because some curriculum, set of courses have been thrown together.
Yep.
How do we build roadmaps and career paths and things of that sort? So I find what you're doing very inspiring. And I guess
Thank you.
part of my profile is, I like the human side and the entrepreneur side. So, I like what you're doing. Um, now, if people want to get in contact with you, what is the best way that they can get in contact with Avenica and partner with you and things of that sort?
Yeah, I mean they can go to our website, avenica.com. You just sort of follow the cues there. There's ways to join our network. There's ways to, engage with us. They can follow us on social media. We have quite a presence on all the social media platforms. We do a lot on TikTok, for sure. But otherwise, I mean, if I'm always interested to talk to interesting people, and I'm always interested in furthering and expanding networks. So, if people can find me personally too on just LinkedIn. Send me a LinkedIn invite. I'll connect with you. Always happy to talk to people that are trying to, do things better or differently. And that's what we live to do every day, is just to kind of relentlessly pursue an environment that's just even a little bit better than the one we're in today. And so anybody that is interested in that and is listening to like your podcast, I mean, I'm always excited to talk to new interesting people that want to make an impact. So yeah.
Sounds like you have the best job in the world.
It's fun. It's fun. My wife doesn't let me use work as like an excuse. Like, oh, I'm so tired because I've been working all day. She's like, it's like being in a toy store for you. You get to sit here and talk about what you love and have fun with it. So it is great. And the team at Avenica is just, I mean, I'm not worthy of them. They're amazing people. They're all, brilliant and talented and passionate, and it's a lot of fun. So,
yeah. Now, do you partner with just colleges, or do you partner with K-12 institutions as well?
Yeah, so we used to do a lot more on the partnership front with educational organizations and different things. We don't do as much of that anymore. We're kind of focused more on going directly to candidates. However, one of the passion areas for me within the organization is I want to continually sort of reach further and further back into the candidate population, because so many individuals that are coming out of like high school, right? They need some of the same sort of guidance, and they need some direction, and like having that focus in that direction and that agency going into, whatever you do after high school is so pivotal. If you feel like it's connecting the dots to where you want to go, like you're going to be so much more successful at it. So, but in this country, there's still this like stigma. I always joke, like there's a stigma around people that have have their name on their shirt, right? But like you have HVAC people and tradespeople making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, like big houses, like really winning in the economy. They're doing fantastic, and these are individuals that didn't have to go to college, right? And like college costs a ton of money, and so we are interested and open in to talk to anyone and everyone. And increasingly, we're trying to get our hiring partners to rethink some of their requirements, because our argument is somebody at the end of April shouldn't be less valuable than somebody at the end of May. Just because they've walked across the stage and gotten a diploma, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a different person. So just starting to try and rethink the requirements and what goes into being successful. I mean, we have some great hiring partners that are interested and passionate about the same sort of things that we are. So like looking at alternative ways to learn what you need to learn to be successful. So it does, we don't do as much on the K through 12 side, but that's an area I'm definitely interested in expanding into, because there's a lot of work to be done there for sure.
Yeah, definitely would love to talk to you more offline.
Yeah.
Just because of the board of advisors work that I do, that maybe if there's a way we can help those guys, that would be great. So I mean, one of the things that, as a matter of fact, as you were talking there, what the blue collar millionaire, what Dr. Stanley, the millennial next door, right? Where there's these pockets of blue collar people that, folks may not be aware of, but they're actually millionaires living around the neighborhood and you may not even be aware of it. And also this notion that college is not for everybody. And therefore, that's why I was, asking about, hey, how do we reach out to high school graduates who may not feel the need or want to go to college, either because maybe they need to kind of work and help out their family, or because they just don't have the affinity for a 4-year college. Just how do we help that demographic out? But I'm sure we can have that conversation in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think it. A lot of these things come back to this idea of maybe just in my sort of general being, I'm a bit contrarian, but I think we have to rethink about like, why do we care about certain things in the way that we do, right? So like, why do so many people feel like they have to graduate high school and then go immediately into college? Why do we have this view of a college student that is 22 years old, right? And like, it's like all of these different things that we've sort of, it's a societal influence in a lot of ways. And I think the pandemic upended a lot of that and sort of, it's like a new normal. And so we have this sort of moment, and it's not, this window won't be open forever, but it's sort of this moment to say like, what really matters, and how can we start to rethink some of these things, and how can we provide the grace for some people to try some different things and go down a different path. I mean, why can't people work, and do different things until they're 30 and then look at, going to college part-time if that's what's in the cards for them? Because, frankly, I mean, the number of people that I know that went to college, have a bachelor's degree, and there is literally no connection to anything that they do in the day-to-day world. Yeah, I mean, my undergraduate degree was in political science, and it was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. I still sort of like watching politics and stuff from the background. But really, what I learned was I was challenged to write, to do research, to think critically, to engage in debate and discussion. But so much of it is just about like testing whether or not you can show up and complete a set of tasks, right? Like, and college is much more different. It's incredibly different than like the working everyday world. So that, that it's just probably not the best barometer to assess whether or not somebody would be a good employee. So, yeah, it's interesting. We could talk for days about this topic.
So what are, this is for the party. So what are maybe the key items, the key takeaways that you want listeners to be able to take from the conversation we just had?
Well, I would encourage, if I were talking to like a small to medium sized business owner, I would encourage them to rethink the way that they are identifying, evaluating, and hiring individuals at any level, and just to say like, okay, what do our job descriptions actually look like? What do they actually say? What are we actually requiring? And what are the top people in any of our roles that are doing this job? What is their background? How did they get here? And what do they tell us? Right. And kind of decentralizing, some of that, and kind of going to individuals and saying, I mean, why not go, if you're an organization that's hiring, customer success individuals, why not go to some of your top performing customer success individuals and say, hey, if you were to describe the ideal employee or the ideal team member, what would they need to have? And how would you know that they would be successful? And they could probably do a much better job at doing that than whoever it is that's writing all the job descriptions for every department across the organization, right? And because, there's a lot of overskilling and different things that gets put in there. So like kind of listening to people that do the job, rethinking this and thinking about it more in terms of like, how do we market to this audience? Because the secret behind any great company is great people, right? And like, if individuals are not giving as much time, energy, and focus to the people that they bring into the organization, then like the people that are receiving or benefiting from their product or service are gonna lose out eventually, right? Because that's what drives these businesses to be successful. It's the people inside the business. So it should be a top priority for any business leader. And I think for a long time, it's just been sort of like this thing that people have kind of punted and just said like, oh, it's an HR thing, but it's a business strategy thing. There's no more important decision that you make as a leader than who to take with you on that journey. So I would say the first thing is always to start there and to take it seriously. And business owners are smart people, right? If they can kind of train their focus on that and think about who are we bringing into the organization? Are they the right people? What do we care about? What do we value? And what does that mean? And how does that translate into the type of person we want to bring in? That's, they're going to be well on their way to achieving success. I think if they just start by doing that and partner with a company like Avenica, sure, there's
Right.
that too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because that's your core competency, and that's what you can bring in the lessons and the best practices, from engaging with the other businesses. That's great. Well, thank you again, Scott, for your time. Really appreciate it. You shared some golden nuggets that's going to be helpful to our listeners. Again, for our listeners, you can go to the show's website, infinitehorizons.com, infhorizons.com/podcast. You can also go on the show's Facebook community page, facebook.com/Build Value by Choice. We are going to have Scott's information, Avenica's information, that shows the podcast show notes. You can get the information from there. Till next week, bye for now.
Thanks.
Thank you.